My name is Nickel, oh Nickel, and it looks like we finally have what seems to be a pretty legitimate leak for the next big Overwatch project, Overwatch 2, according to this. Before we get started, don't forget to drop a thumbs up and subscribe down below if you're as hyped for any of this news as I am, but for now, let's jump straight into it. So we actually have a few different articles that are breaking down some of this information, but we'll start with a piece by one of the most trusted gaming journalists out there right now, Jason Schreier. He put out an article on Kotaku that was titled, "Sources: Blizzard Cancels StarCraft First-Person Shooter to Focus on Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2." So essentially, this article talks about how Blizzard had a first-person StarCraft game in production over the last 2 years, and according to his sources, Blizzard told the staff that it was being canceled to put more resources into the Diablo and Overwatch franchises. And apparently this project that they were working on was codenamed Ares, which was described as sort of a Battlefield game in the StarCraft universe by one of the people who he got this information from. The team had built prototypes in which the player, a Terran Marine, could gun down Zerg aliens, and there were plans to experiment with playable Zerg as well. One of the people that saw the builds of the game last year said that it seemed like development progress was slow, and another person said it came as a massive shock when it was canceled a couple weeks ago. Even though the game was canceled, nobody was laid off, but according to two of the staff, Blizzard told them that this project was getting canceled, as well as an unannounced mobile project, so that the company could move the staff over to the upcoming Diablo 4 and Overwatch 2 projects. And the part that's really crazy is he says that both of these are expected to be Blizzard's marquee announcements at this year's BlizzCon. And if that's true, that is huge. If that did happen, that would mean that we probably wouldn't get this Overwatch 2 anytime this year, obviously, but it would probably gear up for the following year based on a 2019 BlizzCon announcement. And I have some of my own thoughts on what exactly an Overwatch 2 would look like. I definitely don't think it would be like what we see with fighting games where it's a whole new game and everyone moves over to that game. I think that if this does happen, it would probably be the play that Blizzard would use to make the base Overwatch game completely free to play, and then have this Overwatch expansion or Overwatch sequel be the paid $40 cooperative story mode. That would make the most sense of anything. I mean, if you guys remember, we did that interview with Jeff Kaplan a while back at Blizzard headquarters, and what he said was there was no plans in the immediate future for free to play. But of course, they wouldn't be talking about any plans for free-to-play in the distant future, because if they even hinted that, there would be no reason for anyone to pay for the game until that free-to-play version came out. I mean, they also did say in the past that things like deathmatch wouldn't happen, and they actually did happen. But to be fair, he did say never when referring to this whole free-to-play conversation that I asked him. So I think that if this is how it plays out, that would make the most sense, that the base Overwatch game would be free, getting even more interest into the Overwatch League, have this paid story expansion, so all of a sudden, all of the people that already paid the game would have another reason to pay another $40 or $60, however much they charge for it. And we get a little bit more information here as well. The way they describe it is like a Left 4 Dead game, which is perfect. I mean, that's kind of exactly what the Retribution or Overwatch Archives events have kind of always been anyway, so they definitely have some experience in building those type of things, this time just on a much bigger scale. I really think it would be amazing if what they've been working on this whole time for these last 2 years, or however long it's been since we actually got brand new events, is this Overwatch expansion, or if they want to call it a sequel, sure, a sequel, but making maps that are specific to it, not just blocking off one area of the map that's already designed for payload, or they're designed to be a control point map, but maps that are specifically not used for those purposes, that you can kind of traverse through the entire thing. And it would be even better if you were one of the people that purchased this new expansion thing, if you were able to use that in your workshop creations, so you could actually have some maps that aren't just based on the main game modes or elimination. So anyway, I have a lot of thoughts to talk about that, and I'll probably talk about it more on stream or in future videos, but it goes on to say that both of those games will be key parts of Blizzard's strategies in the years to come. Apparently, Diablo 4 is codenamed Fenris, and he says what we've heard about Overwatch 2, or whatever it ends up being called, is that it'll have a large PvE element. A couple of Blizzard people have compared it to Left 4 Dead. That would be incredible. I love Left 4 Dead. I love Overwatch, and I love the idea of an expanded version of the Archives events into a full-fledged game. So there's a little bit more information about the StarCraft thing, which I'm actually pretty interested in, because as a lot of you guys know, I played a ton of StarCraft in my life. It's probably one of my most played games maybe ever. But it said that Ares entered development in 2017 as an experiment to see what the team could do with StarCraft on the Overwatch engine. That actually sounds awesome, to put the Overwatch engine to more use, especially with a franchise as beloved as StarCraft. Blizzard has been hoping to move as many games as possible onto the same technology in order to make their infamously slow game productions more efficient. That plan revolves around the new shared engine that's being adopted by multiple Blizzard projects. According to this, Dustin Browder was actually the one heading up Ares, who, if you guys don't know, actually was the one at the helm of Heroes of the Storm and StarCraft 2. And there's also a reference here to StarCraft Ghost, if you guys don't remember that from years and years ago. It was a third-person shooter stealth game. You would play as Nova that ultimately never actually came out. In 2006, they completely canceled it. So beyond this, there was actually an article over on GameSpot that kind of ties in here, where they say that it appears Blizzard Entertainment has canceled a project that was in development for the last 2 years. And this one actually mentions a game developer named David Gibson, who was a senior animator on Overwatch, who started working on the mysterious unannounced project in July of 2017. And then they reference a tweet apparently that he put out where he says, "Well, today is my last day at Blizzard. Unfortunately, you'll never see what we made over the past 2 years. That's game dev, but we'll always have Overwatch." So they're kind of just tying that in to show the whole picture of what's going on here. But again, I want to reiterate that I really don't think it's going to be like what a lot of people are upset about, which is that Blizzard is going to abandon Overwatch 1 and then force everyone to buy Overwatch 2. That just doesn't make any sense. Right now, the Overwatch League has so much investment in it, it doesn't make any sense to do that. And I think a lot of people are kind of freaking out about nothing, essentially. That just doesn't make any sense. I think if anything, this is the perfect excuse to make Overwatch go free to play, like I mentioned before. And not to mention, the workshop just came out. It wouldn't make sense for them to put all these major features into the base Overwatch game if they were going to actually dump that entire game to begin with. So I don't think they're replacing it. I think they're just adding to it. Beyond that, one of the criticisms that a lot of people have is that the Overwatch team has such a huge team, and when all the layoffs happened, a lot of the layoffs weren't for devs, so what have all the rest of the devs been working on? This is probably just that. Because there definitely is a lot of people that are frustrated that there's just essentially the one new event added a year, which is the continuation to Archives, which I personally love, but I know a lot of people kind of want that year one of Overwatch where everything is fresh, everything is new. Every single seasonal event was completely a brand new experience for the first time. And in the interview that we did with Jeff Kaplan, he talked about a lot of stuff, you know, cross-platform play, guilds, a whole bunch of different ideas. Some features he said that people weren't even asking for that he thought were going to be really great. And maybe this Overwatch expansion, or as they call it here, Overwatch 2, is the culmination of all of that. There was actually a really good clip by a Reddit user named Izumi that's referencing a stream that Jeff Kaplan was on from a streamer named Fran, where he actually says that the engine wasn't built for PvE, and he explains kind of why it's tricky to do PvE stuff. So maybe that's part of the reason why it would be considered a completely separate game, a whole new purchase.
For a year. And no, it's not that we're like super slow or anything like that. It's that we built our engine from scratch, and our engine wasn't built to be like PvE related. So a lot of the PvE systems we're literally building into the game for the first time, and how we're handling AI and certain things like that. We have to write those systems from scratch. So that's why Retribution took as long as it did.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah.
So no story mode, unfortunately.
I didn't say no story mode. I just said
take
it's a lot of work. And it's probably a new game.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, probably the most important thing that would come from this is the massive push forward in the story. I know a lot of people complain about how there's very little story progression in Overwatch as a whole, but if there's a whole separate game, maybe that's the reason why they've kind of been holding out a little bit on the story, to have a whole bunch of story come out all at once in one massive game. And if you look at the Overwatch League, I mean, to me, it's still probably the highest quality production of pretty much any esport I've ever seen, and it definitely wouldn't hurt if there's suddenly a few new million players of Overwatch that are now playing because they have access to the game for the very first time, because it's kind of hard to watch an esport for a game if you've never played it, if you don't know how to play it or never even experienced it at all. And if suddenly anyone can play the game, that's a lot more people that are probably willing to watch the game. even if they don't play it competitively or super seriously, maybe they only play it for workshop. Maybe that's the reason for the perfect timing of the workshop. I still wouldn't be surprised if, even if it didn't go completely free to play in the sense that we're thinking of, where it's just kind of a free-for-all, if they did something like I've talked about before, which is the whole CSGO method, or at least the core idea of it, where anyone can play the game whenever they want, but if they do want to play competitively, they're matched up against people that also have the free versions of the game. But if you have the paid version of the game, then they match you against other people that have the paid version of the game as well. Or if that's a problem because they don't want to split the player base in half, simply make it so that the free version of the game, you can't play competitive at all. You can play everything else except for competitive. I think that would probably be the most simple, elegant solution, so that everyone can get their feet wet with Overwatch. And if they really want to take it seriously and they really want to play, they could pay for a copy of the game, and all of a sudden they have, you know, the extra skins that it comes with at the start, plus access to the competitive ladder. But anyway, I think this news is probably some of the most significant we've gotten in quite a while. If you guys don't know, I'm actually out here in Tokyo still, so the hours are a bit weird for me to make videos. As soon as I get back to the US, we'll be back on track at our normal schedule. So thank you to those of you guys that have been bearing with me. If you guys want to see some of what we're working on out here, we're actually doing daily gaming live streams out here in Tokyo. So if you want to check them out, see what we're up to, and kind of explore Tokyo with us through the lens of a gaming stream, there's a link down below in the description. But either way, if you guys enjoy this video and you're hyped for the future of Overwatch and Diablo 4, drop a thumbs up, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next video.